What's up? You've just tuned into Tanaka TV. I hope you enjoyed your Christmas, and I hope you're enjoying your holidays. You've just tuned into the best and future biggest fight channel on YouTube. So don't forget to hit that like, that comment, that subscribe button. I appreciate everybody's support and those who are going to be supporting me in the future. And today we're going to be talking about Brian Ortega versus Yair Rodriguez 2. Now, these two gentlemen, they fought not too long ago. I mean, as far as a typical rematch goes, unless it was a super close fight and you get an immediate rematch, this fight has been pretty recent, within the last, year and a half ago. And so that wasn't that long ago since we've seen these two gentlemen fight. And if you are up to date with the UFC, you know that Yair Rodriguez won that fight, and I think it was within the first round by a TKO. It was a very dominant fight, and I'm just gonna be straightforward. I think Yair Rodriguez is probably going to win this matchup as well, which isn't great news for Brian Ortega. If Brian Ortega loses this fight, I don't see a outlet for him to be able to get another title shot. He has to win this fight, and I just don't see it happening. I think that Yair Rodriguez, besides that fight that he had recently with Alexander Volkanovski, which he lost against, but everybody's been losing against Volkanovski. Volkanovski's just been tearing up that division. I mean, Volkanovski's just been on a tear in general outside of his fights with, the 155 division. And so I think Yair Rodriguez has a clear-cut win advantage, and that is through his striking. Throughout Yair Rodriguez's career, he's been a very creative striker. He's been a very unorthodox, very unpredictable fighter. And as he's gotten older, as he's matured throughout his MMA career, he's only gotten better at it. I think that he's become more seasoned as a fighter. He's gone through more wars as a fighter. And so he's settled into that fighting style, which I think is kind of hard to settle into because, like I said, it's very unorthodox. It's very unpredictable and not traditional in the sense of it being a typical Muay Thai style, a typical boxing style. He's really good at mixing all kinds of striking styles together. That, amongst his ability to stay on his feet, I think his ability to stay on his feet and prevent takedowns has gotten much better over the years, and I think that's been one of the things that's hindered Yair Rodriguez in his fights, is that he hasn't been able to figure out the puzzle between a person who can grapple him, who can make the fight dirty, and I think that he's gotten much better at that. And I do think that that's Brian Ortega's advantage against Yair, but I don't think Brian Ortega is going to be able to display that. Brian Ortega is a very, very good grappler. I don't think he's been showing that a lot recently throughout his past 4 fights or so. And I think it's because he in his own right has become a very decent and solid striker. I think that his boxing has gotten really good over time. Now, he's been going against people who are elite strikers, and so you don't really get to see that as much. But if you remember his knockout on a person like Frankie Edgar, granted Frankie Edgar was way past his prime in that moment, but it really that really shows you where Brian Ortega's striking was developing. And I think that was the first kind of sign that Brian Ortega has been developing his striking set. But I don't think it's anywhere close to as good enough to be compared to a Yair Rodriguez or even like a Max Holloway. Max Holloway boxed his face off. Yair Rodriguez just straight up out kickboxes him. And I think Brian Ortega, and I think a lot of fighters who come from a grappling background, and one person who really comes to mind with what I'm about to say is Ronda Rousey, a grappler who starts to develop their striking, and they start to fall in love with the striking, and they tend to abandon what got them to the dance, and that is their grappling. It's almost like they have a problem with mixing the two styles together and becoming a complete mixed martial artist. And a lot of fighters who come from that grappling background, they think that, okay, now I'm a good striker, now that I've developed some sort of striking set, I'm a complete fighter. But it's more than that. It's how you couple the two together. It's how you are able to take the advantage of you being a grappler and sprinkling in your newfound ability of being a striker. And I think falling in love with something that's not your bread and butter is going to get you in trouble, and we've seen it before, and I think we're starting to see that, or have been seeing that, with Brian Ortega. And so Brian Ortega's way of winning this fight is through grappling, is through trying to submit Yair Rodriguez, but I just don't see it happening. I don't think Brian Ortega is a huge takedown artist. He's more of a scrambling type of jiu-jitsu guy. Now, for those who don't know, he got a lot of his grappling experience from the Gracies. I don't know if he's still training with the Gracies in jiu-jitsu, but I know that he was a long-time student with the Gracies, and that's how he was able to do so well with his grappling. I mean, he's called T-City. That T stands for triangle. And so he was a big practitioner when it came to jiu-jitsu, and that triangle and his rear naked chokes. He was really, really good at that, and that's how he was getting a lot of his wins. But then when he started to win with knockouts, it's very easy to fall in love with that. But you then start to lean one way, and you don't become a full fighter. You're a complete fighter, but you don't fight completely. Does that make sense, people? I think I'm making sense here, to where you can have striking, you can have grappling, but if you can't couple those two things together as a mixed martial artist and display that in a mixed martial arts fashion, then they're going to be missing pieces. And I think that's what's happening with Brian Ortega. I think Brian Ortega has all of the tools of being a champion in that division. He just has a problem with mixing those two things together, and I think he's missing that heart, that dog. And we got to see a little bit of it with that Max Holloway fight. Max Holloway was able to bring that out of Brian Ortega, but I think that, Max Holloway is one of the most heartfelt fighters in the division. You cannot break Max Holloway. And so, like I said, Brian Ortega has been trying to outstrike strikers instead of trying to do what he's best at, and that is grappling. That is submitting people. And so that's why I think Yair Rodriguez is going to get it done, especially Yair Rodriguez over the last 2 years, who's been really developing his game. I really don't take anything away from him after his loss with Volkanovski. I think that Yair Rodriguez has been a killer. He's been a dark horse in that division. Look at what he did to Josh Emmett. Look at what he's done to a lot of different fighters with that creative striking. And ultimately, I think Yair's probably going to get it done within, 2 rounds, maybe. I just think Yair Rodriguez is at a point to where he's even better than a year and a half ago. He has dramatically gotten better. And so comment down below, people, what you think about this rematch between the two gentlemen. Like I said, this is a very quick turnaround for these two. And it's a very interesting division. I don't know what's going to happen if Yair so happens to beat Brian Ortega. I don't know what's going to happen. I think it's more important for Brian Ortega to get this one back. And a lot of people are saying that Brian Ortega doesn't deserve this rematch. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe I don't know. I know it's a phenomenal matchup, and if I had to give the odds on this out of 10, I would give it. I'll give it a 7 out of 3. 70% going into Yair Rodriguez, 30% going Brian Ortega's way. I think Brian Ortega really needs to settle back into his grappling in order to get this fight done. And so you've just tuned in to Naka TV. Like I said, don't forget to hit that like, that comment, that subscribe button. I'm really trying to grow this channel, really trying to give you the best content I could possibly give you. hey people, I've gotten a tripod back for my camera, and so you're going to start seeing my camera work again as far as uploading really solid footage when it comes to me speaking on martial arts. And so please tune in, continue to tune in. I appreciate everyone's support. Happy holidays, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.